Hi, I'm Jon Peters, and today I'm going to make a walnut frame. And the interesting thing about this frame is I'm actually going to make the molding on my molding planer for the frame. And not only am I going to make the molding, I'm going to design the molding, and I'm going to have a knife cut to make that molding. So I'll show you how I do that. I'm using the Williams & Hussey molding planer. The way that works is the first thing you need to do is design your molding and do a scale drawing of it with your measurements. You send that to Williams & Hussey, and about a week or so later, you'll get sent back a blade. And this is your cutting knife. The cutting knife goes into the planer, and that's what you use to cut your molding. Then once you have the knives, they're easily installed into the rotating head of the machine. Now it goes without saying that you don't want to have your machine plugged in while you're installing the cutting knives. Now before I can start making any molding, first I need to rough all my material down to the molding size, which is 1 3/4 wide by 3/4 of an inch deep. And this is a good time to get rid of any of those awkward pieces of wood that you haven't been able to use for any other projects. Like this piece of walnut, it's a piece of 8/4 walnut, and I had made a tabletop years ago, and since then this piece of wood has been hanging around the shop. So I can simply cut this down into 3/4 inch strips, and I'll be able to use this now to make some molding. Now that I've got all my stock cut to width and depth, I'm ready to make molding. Okay, well now that all my molding is made, I'm ready to start making my frames. The first thing I do is put a miter on one side of the piece of molding. And because I know that my paintings are exactly 5 by 7 inches, and I want an 1/8 inch reveal around the entire painting, I'll cut this piece of molding at 7 1/4 inches on the inside measurement. Now that I've cut all the molding, I can start to assemble the frame. I'll put a little glue on the end grain. You see how that glue seeps out of the corner there? It's always good to get rid of any of the glue with a wet rag before it dries. Well, now the inside of the frame is assembled, and if I put the painting in, you can see that it's about 1/4 inch too high above this bead here. And so what I need to do is make this piece of molding that attaches to the back of the frame. And I'll make that piece of molding out of a piece of poplar. And what I'll do is I'll put basically a rabbet on the table saw. I'll cut this part out. So this part right here will be removed on the table saw, and then I can screw through this part here to attach the painting to the frame. So now I have my molding. What I'm going to do is attach it to the back of the frame. And you can see how that makes the frame deeper, and then the painting will just sit right inside here. So here's a little trick for transferring this line. This piece of molding here, this piece that's going to be attached to the back of the frame, is 3/8 of an inch. And so what I'll do is I'll take my fingernail and I'll use that as a guide. And once I have that in place, I can just trace it right around the frame. And that'll give me a guideline when I go to attach this piece of molding. And so when this goes to get attached, if I line the back of this piece of molding up with this line here, using it as my guide, then I know that it's right where it needs to be on the inside. Now with the line transferred onto my frame, the way I get the length of this piece of molding is to put the back against the line, and then my cut will be right where the miter is on the already existing frame. And now you can see how the frame is deeper, and if I place the painting inside the frame, it sits just below this piece of bead molding. Now there's one more thing I need to do, and that's attach a piece of molding on the outside of the frame. Well, the frame's almost finished, and the last thing I need to do is attach this piece of molding that goes around the outside of the frame. And that's milled on the table saw to 3/8 of an inch wide by 1 3/4 inch deep. And that'll get attached right to the side of the frame. I want my reveal to be the same all the way around the frame with my piece of molding. So what I've done is placed a piece of 1/4 inch plywood on my working surface, put the frame on top of that piece of 1/4 inch plywood, and then when I go to attach my molding, I'll have the same reveal all the way around the frame. I've got a pre-drill with a countersink bit. It's an all-in-one drill bit, and I'll use that to drill my holes. Now I'll sand the frame and it will be ready for finish. Now I'm staining the frames, and I'm using Minwax wood stain, Walnut, and I've cut the stain in half so it's not too dark. Right now I'm removing any of the excess stain. Then I'll let the frames dry overnight and they'll be ready to clear coat tomorrow. I let the frames dry overnight, and then I sprayed them with lacquer right out of the spray can. And for a small project like this, this is fine. And my rule of thumb is usually 3 coats. I did make another frame because I had some extra molding left over. Now these frames I specifically made for these paintings, but before I attach the paintings to the frame, I'm going to see how a couple of other paintings would look in this frame, and that gives me an idea of how I want to design frames for some of my work. So I'll show you how they look. It's kind of interesting to see how a traditional frame works with a painting that's maybe not so traditional. These are the same frames. They're just flipped to read 7 by 5 as opposed to 5 by 7. Now the paintings inside the frames are called encaustic transfers. And if you'd like to learn how to make an encaustic transfer, just click on the link right here, and that takes you to a video I made that explains how to make an encaustic transfer. And after looking at the paintings in these frames, I kind of like it, and I think that that's how I'm going to frame them. Well, that's it for this project. I hope you tune into my next video where I make this simple tabletop easel. Now this is a fun project, and it's really simple, especially compared to this frame. For one thing, you don't need a molding planer, which I'm assuming a lot of people don't have a molding planer, but I hope you enjoyed the video anyway. Anyway, this is a fun project, and thanks for tuning in.